this Ramadan.
Welcome back. It's exactly 31 minutes after 4, which is 29 minutes to 5 Central African time. And welcome back to the Ramadan Around the World segment. And my next guest does not need much of an introduction because we've had him on the program before and known to Salam Media audiences. Mabrur Ahmed, he's in the United Kingdom, and he's joining us now to share with us Ramadan in the United Kingdom. Mabrur, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
You good?
I'm very well. Jazakallah for joining us. Mabrur, which part of the United Kingdom are you in?
I'm in London at the moment,
You're
but
in London Central.
I'm from Birmingham, so I represent both. Okay.
You're from Birmingham. Wow, this is going to be fun. I'm
No,
really
that's what
looking forward
normally
to this.
happens when I come on in the UK. When I tell people I'm from Birmingham, they normally start laughing, just like you did as well.
And you know why people are laughing, right?
I have no idea. I'm almost 40 years old. I still don't know why people laugh after I tell them I'm from Birmingham.
No, you should ask them, but not here, not now.
No, no, no.
Mabrur, the reason why I'm laughing is because I studied with a lot of students that were, from the United Kingdom, and many of them of Bengali origin, and they lived all over the United Kingdom. And one of the habits, or one of the practices, was when it was Eid al-Fitr,
Yeah.
the boys would go out of their way and hire exotic cars. I'm talking Lamborghinis, Ferraris, you name it, Rolls Royces. Does that still happen, Mabrur, for Eid?
Of course, that still happens. I'll be honest, I've never done it myself, but it does happen. Definitely, it happens. You see processions, in the evenings, during Eid day, the next day as well. A lot of young boys get very excited about these things, and soon their cars pass. Of course, that still happens. Yeah, I don't know what the thrill is that they get out of it, but they apparently do.
And it's something that happens every year during Eid. I suppose that maybe last year or so, because of COVID, it must have been a little dampened down, but apparently it's full on.
To be honest with you, not really. I think even the last couple of years during COVID, people were still hiring their cars out and going a bit crazy on Eid day. Yeah.
Mashallah. Mabrur, you said that you're living in London. A lot of people, whenever they would say you're from London, they would ask the question, which part of London are you from? London proper? What does that mean? What is proper London and what is not proper London?
I don't know. There's a lot of people who sometimes say that they're from London, and they're probably from the southeast of the country, and kind of by association, perhaps some of the smaller towns and villages or areas around the outskirts of London kind of have become engulfed as part of the main part of London. I'm in proper London. I'm in the proper Muslim London as well. I'm in East London, so it's as Muslim as you can get as London is.
Okay, explain that to us, because we hear a lot about the fact that London is a very cosmopolitan city. It's like Johannesburg, New York, a big city in the world, and as a result, Muslim people are quite prominent. We see them the ladies with the abayas, we see the men with their beards and their topis. Is it really like that?
Yeah, 100%. I think probably, I've been very privileged. Allah's given me much in my life. I've traveled much of the world, and I would say probably, London is probably the most cosmopolitan city in the world. You can be whatever you want in London, and somewhere along the line, people will accept you. Of course, there's still some problems in terms of people accepting one another and whatnot. But I mean, there's more languages spoken in London than I think any other city in the world. There's more religions practiced in London, and more religious institutions in London than I think in any other city in the world as well. So yeah, absolutely. We and even amongst Muslims as well, that there's huge diversity. Obviously we have the more stereotypical kind of what we imagine the identity of a practicing Muslim, a abaya wearing beard, carrying people, but then you have all the other types of Muslims as well who identify in many formats as well. Yeah.
So is East London the posh side of London?
Yeah, I mean, come on, I'm here, so of course, not really.
It has to be posh.
East London is probably has an impression of being the more grittier side of London, but probably insofar as the last 15, 20 years is concerned, probably the most coolest part of London as well. So I'll definitely claim that part.
Okay, so you're from the posh side of London that's actually that's predominantly Muslim as well. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's not predominantly Muslim. It's just that there's a higher, I don't know, concentration of Muslims in this area. There's a couple of boroughs. I mean, London is separated by different boroughs. There's a couple of boroughs where there is, strong Muslim representation. So I'm in one of the boroughs called Tower Hamlets. It's probably the strongest Muslim representation borough in the whole country. So we have really big masajids here. We have a very, very thriving halal food market available everywhere as well. And yeah, I mean, it's easy to practice Islam in these types of
how does one decide, for example, in a place like London that is so cosmopolitan, like you said, it's got Muslims from all over the world, not just from Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, Africa, but it's got Muslims from all over the world. The Arabs are there too. How does one decide what type of Ramadan they're going to have? If for example, if you want to say, look, I want to have an Arab style Ramadan, I want to have an Arab experience Ramadan, I want to have.
I think we're all pretty easy here. I think we mix and match as and when the day sees fit. I think we can go into different modes, and that's one of the beauties of living in a cosmopolitan city like this. And sometimes you want to go out for a Lebanese iftar, you can do. You want to go for an Indian style iftar, you can do. You want to have a home style iftar, you can do as well. People sometimes even have a McDonald's iftar. That's the kind of range that's available. So it's it's good in that sense. I go to a local masajid. I don't even go to one of the big masajids, right? For my tarawih in the evening. I have people standing next to me who are doing Ramadan. They're standing with their hands crossed, not crossed. People who are, doing all types of different versions of their salah. I think that's wonderful.
It must be, because that type of diversity we can only imagine in South Africa. We do have a few immigrants, but not as much as London. London is the melting pot after all. Mabrur, here's another question with regards to Ramadan, a typical Ramadan in London. The non-Muslims in London, are they aware that Muslims are fasting right now?
So maybe not like every single person, but I think generally, yeah, because I don't think there isn't really an area in London or in the southeast of England probably where it's like almost exclusively non-Muslim. You'll have Muslims in different pockets of communities everywhere, and yeah, I think look, I'm nearly 40 years old. When my first fast started happening, when I was like maybe 10, 12, 11 years old, we were not maybe so outwardly proud of the fact that we're fasting. There'd be certain things that you might try to do to hide the fact that you might have terrible breath. You know what I mean? So but
nowadays we've got the mask. Nowadays we've got the COVID-19 mask.
There you go. But even with that I think we're, as a community, we're probably a bit more loud and proud about our faith and the way that we go about our life as well. So I think, there's many people. I have a colleague, we run a cafe here as well as the human rights organization, that I've been part of before. I have many different types of colleagues. I've got an Irish colleague, a white Irish colleague who's from a Catholic background, and he's keeping the whole of Ramadan fasts with us as well.
Wow,
as a way of solidarity. So, and these things happen all the time. This is not like uncommon. This is not something which is unheard of. It's quite common.
We always hear about the reverts to Islam or converts to Islam in the UK. I've seen a few documentaries about that as well. Would you say there's some sort of an understanding that, or there's some sort of a movement towards people becoming Muslim in the United Kingdom?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the UK as well, I think it's the fastest growing religion in the UK, which is, we're not talking about fastest growing in terms of children born. We're talking about fastest growing in terms of, conversions, reversions, or whatever it is that the term that we want to use. But I think that's just one part of the picture. I think that sounds great, but the reality of it is, for especially in times like Ramadan, Eid, there's a lot of people who have become Muslim who are probably going through these things alone for the first time. Probably they have many different types of questions and concerns and moments of not having such a strong, thriving community around them as well. And I think we're still a way off being, fully accepting and fully welcoming. we still have our nuances. You mentioned a lot about the kind of the South Asian contingency in terms of Islam in South Africa. We have that here as well. It's a large part of the Muslim community is South Asian here in the UK, and I still think that there is some way to go to welcoming brothers and sisters from different parts of the world who have faith and no faith as well, and welcoming them into our religion or even into our practices. I think there's still some way to go. There's still some lack of understanding and lack of compassion, and I think that's where we need to grow.
No, that's fantastic. I just think that, coming from such a cosmopolitan and mixed city, there would be greater opportunities for people to know more about Islam and be more tolerant towards Muslims. Let's talk about the preparations for Eid. We're just a few days away from Eid. What are your typical Eid days looking like for a typical Muslim family that lives in London?
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, obviously we're in the last 10 nights, right? So, and as much as we might try and understand and propagate scriptures and hadith about the odd nights of the last 10 nights and the possibility of Qadr being on any of those nights, everyone's still building up to this 27, 27, 27, right? So it happens. So
yes,
I think
same here, actually. They call it big night.
The big night. It's not even just here. Even in the Haramains, it's the same thing, right? So they're like, we all understand it, we all know it, but for some reason we still go back to revert to type, which is the 27th, right? So the 27th is tomorrow night. So I think there's a lot of people. I think what we always see every single year is the 27th really is the pinnacle of people's worship, people's diligence, people's effort, people's time, people's emotions towards their deen, religion, their Ramadan, their fasting. And then it's almost the moment 27th is done, from the 28th onwards, it's unfortunately become super commercialized. So it's about what are you going to buy? How can we get rid of all the food from the supermarket aisles? Where can we go and get our last minute clothes and presents from, etc. It is that, but at the same time, I think one of the things that's really nice about the Muslim community in London is that obviously there's a lot of the community are from immigrant families or are immigrants themselves, either second, third generations or whatever. And so this idea of people milling around, buzzing around, the busyness of it is something that we often seem to find, kind of looking back at in a romantic way, almost in a nostalgic way, and almost in a kind of, this is really, this is what I know, this is what I'm used to. But for someone who's not from those immigrant backgrounds, that's so exciting to see, right? It's so exciting to see that there's people frying food outside, or that there's this, because in the UK we just don't have that much of an outside culture almost. It's a cold country, we don't have a huge population. A lot of our things are indoors. So the moment that you can have any sort of thing that's outside, outdoors, lots of people, it's exciting, it's nice, it's fun to see, it's good to be part of. But of course, like I said, it is hugely commercialized as well.
Right. Talking about the commercialization, Mabrur, we know that there's been Brexit recently, and to some extent, it's impacted the prices of goods in supermarkets. I saw somewhere saying that even the price of dates in the UK this year it's crazy. People are complaining about the high prices of Kajur dates. You think has Brexit impacted this Ramadan? It's the first Ramadan or second Ramadan since Brexit. Yeah, Brexit.
I think Brexit has impacted a little bit, but there's other things that have impacted more. So, for example, this government's insistence on using furlough packaging and spending billions and billions of pounds in the response to COVID on things like that means that we pay the bill later on, and we're paying some of the bills later on now. We have an increase in things like national insurance coming from the end of this week. Most people will see that their pay packets have been cut by a significant amount because there's an increase in national insurance. There's been a massive 50% increase in energy prices just 3 weeks ago. And there are huge kind of inflation issues happening in the UK and across most of Western Europe and the US as well. And that's got a lot to do with the way that we've responded to the pandemic, the way that we respond to situations that are happening in Russia and Ukraine, Brexit, and all of these types of things. I'll give you a very quick example. Normally, we'd be able to buy a watermelon about this big from the markets, last year or the year before. probably for about £4 or £5. Now those same watermelons are going for maybe £12, £13, £15 even. It's there are certain things that have gone double up in prices. Yeah, for sure.
That sounds like a lot. Final question. I know.
Also, Lukman, is very important to say. As a result, there's a lot of Muslims in the UK now who are absolutely on the poverty line. Some that are even eligible for zakat, and that's crazy. Thinking that we're in the 6th richest country in the world.
It's a good thing you talk about the underprivileged, because I really wanted to, before we leave you, touch on, the Rohingya refugees. I know that Restless Beings, your organization, you do humanitarian work, and obviously, the work that you do in that regard. Are you making any plans to assist people, that are, Rohingya, that are also refugees, that want to also have a good Eid this year?
100%. We've been helping 4 communities this year. The Rohingya refugees, as we've done for the last 12, 13 years. We also work with refugees in West Africa as well, around the Lake Chad region as well, in refugee camps around northern Nigeria, Cameroon, those areas as well. We also are working in Gaza and in Yemen. So far as our Eid preparations are concerned, we were just talking about it this morning, actually. We're planning to give out 600 Eid gifts to 300 Rohingya children in the camps. We've got 2 schools there, so we'll be giving all of our children a new set of clothes and a hot meal, as well as the fitra that they can take back for their family as well. And the same thing we're doing in West Africa as well. Another 300 children will be getting new clothes, a hot meal, and 3 kgs of fitra as prescribed by the Prophet ﷺ, to take back for their families as well. And this is all very relatively cheap things to do. We're talking, for the price of about £10, which is very, very cheap. It's less than the price of a watermelon, like I said, right? That you can provide all of these things for. And on top of that, like I said, throughout the whole of Ramadan, zakat, sadaqah lillah, on food packs, sadaqah jariyah, on water wells in West Africa as well. So yeah, I mean, Ramadan is a huge time for us here at Restless Beings, because one of our biggest acts of ibadah is to be able to help people to give their money in an amana way, in a way which is
absolutely
useful, in a way which is impactful, and in a way which that they can be happy with, and hopefully these donations can act as an intercession for people's souls when they need it the most.
Absolutely. I know you said you don't do it yourself, and you don't understand what the whole thinking about it is. But if you had to hire yourself a car for Eid al-Fitr, what would you, if you was like 17-year-old Mabrur, what car would you have been going for? If you
know what? I drive a beat-up S-Class Mercedes, right? I would hire someone to come in and just fix my suspension, my brake pads, and that would be a very
No, you're not allowed to fix your car. You've been given ED money. You've been given ED money, and your grandfather said, "Go and hire a nice car." What car would you have gone to get?
You know what? I don't know if you're old enough to remember. I'll hire a Nissan Datsun, and I'll give the rest of my money. That's what I'll do.
But that's not part of the thing, innit? Because on Eid you're supposed to be driving a really nice car, and it's part of the whole.
When was the last time you saw a Nissan Datsun from 1981? Exactly.
In 1981. That was the last time I saw it.
There you go.
Mabrur, it's always a pleasure talking to you.
Before I go, you need to tell me, what would you drive?
No, definitely Ferrari, mate.
Ferrari. It has to be red.
It has to be red too.
It has to be red. Which Ferrari? Are you aware of it?
The F. Okay, now you caught me. But the really expensive looking Ferrari.
The really expensive one. The really red one. The really expensive one.
Yeah. Because
I'll have a green Lamborghini next to you then, okay?
There you go. Oh, the Ferrari Enzo. That's what I would go for. Yeah.
There you go.
If wishes were horses.
Not just for hiring, but forever.
Inshallah. Mabrur, it's always a pleasure talking to you. I really enjoy our conversations. May Allah reward you for the work you do at Restless Beings, and also for giving our viewers an insight into what the typical Ramadan and Eid is like for somebody that lives in the posh east end of London.
Don't make fun of me, Maulana Lukman, but thank you very much. May Allah reward you and all of the team at Salam Media as well.
Absolutely. Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Mabrur Ahmed, the founder of Restless Beings, talking to us there about a typical Ramadan in London. Of course, alhamdulillah, lots of stuff was said in playfulness, but yes, a very serious atmosphere in London this time around, and of course talking about the work that he's doing also to make Eid a joyous celebration for people from the Rohingya community and also people from West Africa as well. Of course, I'm sure you'll be able to know how to contact the Restless Beings to find out how you too can also participate and get the Sadaqah Jariyah and the Thawab Jariyah, inshallah. It's now 9 minutes to 5 p.m. Central African time. You are listening to the Iftar Drive. We're going to take a short break, but before we do, here's an announcement from Amana IFS. It's the following. Riba is a terrible sin. Easily move your business or personal insurance to Amana IFS. Contact them on 0861 786 396. That's 0861 786 393 and leave riba for good.